Hello, and welcome to the Punch Show. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing swell. It's Harry's on first again. If you were here in America and you played baseball, you would be a first baseman because you're always on first. So how's it going over there, Harry? Of course you won't get that joke. Maybe you will. I don't have any cricket jokes. If I did, all you would hear is crickets because they wouldn't be funny. But let's just talk about some things. Blanche it looks like he's gonna make it through. He may or may not make it through. It sounds like at least one Senate candidate is not going to vote for him because she doesn't want to lose her election, and she knows she will if he does. But doesn't that tell you something? Like, they know that if they vote for him and they're up for election, that they're going to lose. Like, I feel like there's one thing that I don't think it's... Sorry, I gotta just... My laptop's looking yucky and I need to clear it off. All right, so let's talk about this. I got distracted. So let's talk about this for a second, okay? You have an attorney general who is going to prosecute somebody. He wants to prosecute somebody who didn't even do anything illegal. He doesn't just want to prosecute somebody who could, who like there was a crime committed and he's prosecuting the wrong person for it. There wasn't even a crime committed and he wants to prosecute somebody because Donald Trump made up a stupid thing in the middle of a stupid rambling speech. He just said something stupid and lied. And now he needs to cover for his lie. And the Attorney General of the United States, who is the person who is entrusted with enforcing our laws, is going to use that power to prosecute an Olympian for literally touching water and not committing a crime. And he was ready to do that, and then Janine Winebox Pinero wasn't ready to go along with it at a certain point. I don't know what happened that even she got to the point where she's like, no, this is silly. We can't do this. And so Harry says, why do you need a crime to prosecute somebody? Isn't that woke? And that's like where we've gotten. And that's who Todd Blanche is. He will prosecute people even when there's no crime committed just because Trump said so. And then you have this El Sayed guy that won in a tighter election than we thought for the primary. And all that anybody can talk about is he's an extremist. And I'm like trying to figure out what makes him an extremist. Like, what is extreme about him? He's extremely articulate. I'll give him that. Seems to be pretty, extremely intelligent. He's extremely on point. And other than that, I don't see anything extreme about him. His politics aren't extreme. I think the extremist is the guy that will prosecute somebody for a crime that wasn't committed. just so they don't look bad for something they lied about in a stump speech. Like that to me is extremism. I think extremism is somebody that starts wars just because, or suspends uh, aid to states because the governor was on the other side's ticket, or that is prosecuting people for posting pictures of seashells. These people that are sitting there acting like he's the most extreme candidate of a major party in American history, which is what Ted Cruz said, seem to have forgotten that Donald Trump exists. You know, he's running around calling everybody a communist. And I thought about this. You know that poem? It starts, first they came for the communists, right? The famous poem about the Nazis. It doesn't start first they came for the Jews. It starts first they came for the communists. Then they came for the socialists, right? They didn't come for the Jews until later. So you want to talk about extremism, all this talk about, going after the communists, and you even have people wondering why it should be legal in the United States to be communist, when these people aren't communists, by the way. They're not. Nobody is sitting there advocating for the seizure of all means of production and distribution, and like that's just nonsense. They're not communists. They're not even really purely socialists. They're mixed capitalists. I'll say Sayed says he's a capitalist. He just believes it should be regulated. So what is extreme about him? Go ahead. I looked into stuff. Oh, he's part of the Muslim Brotherhood. No, he is part of a student organization. He was part of a student organization when he was in college that was started by people that went on to be in the Muslim Brotherhood like 20 years ago. Has nothing to do with it. This is just, like saying I know what the Kevin Bacon, because I got 6 degrees of separation between me and Kevin Bacon, right? Like everybody else on the planet. You want to sit there and you want to find ties like that, anything that makes anybody, oh, well, they were associated with this person who knew this person, and that person said this thing, and therefore they're a terrorist. You want to go by that, then everybody's a terrorist, right? But I know Donald Trump is having American citizens killed on the streets of Minneapolis and then defending the people that killed them. You want to know who the terrorist is? The one who's actually inflicting terror on American citizens? It's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the extremist. Donald Trump is a fascist. Donald Trump is a terrorist. I'll say, yeah, just wants to give people health care. I don't know what makes him extreme about that. So I'm going to go through some comments. What I want to do today, I always hear, and I see all these interviews where people are like, oh, Democrats need to just run against something other than I'm against Trump. And it's like, have you ever gone to a web page? Like, have you gone to any of the web pages to see what they're running on? Because it doesn't seem like you do. Because if you did do that, they did this with Kamala. She had a whole website up and everything that had all her policies laid out on it. And, oh, well, what is she running for? Dude, if you really cared, you could just go to her webpage and look it up. But you just rather regurgitate stupid talking points than actually even show the slightest bit of interest and curiosity. She put up a whole website just so you could go and find out what she was running on. But because the media didn't jam it down your throat and force feed it to you, somehow it's her fault that she'd had a messaging problem. All right. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to read the comments, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through, I'm going to look at El Sayed's webpage, and we will evaluate for ourselves based on what El Sayed is running on, is he an extremist? Because I think it's more fair to evaluate him based on what he is actually running on than whatever kind of smear tactics that the Republican right-wing Nazis are using. All right. So, okay, so wow, we got some comments. Harry says John Oliver for president. That's my campaign. I would love John Oliver for president, but he's not born in America, so he can't be. There's loads of Republicans going on about the Muslim Community Patrol in New York as if they are an NYC police force enforcing Sharia law. They are really love to, especially when it comes to Mamdani and now El Sayed. They love to like make it sound like there is this Muslim extremist movement. Like they figure everybody that is a Muslim is an Islamic extremist. That's the way they want to make it sound. And the religious extremists are the Christian right. The ones who want to jam their viewpoint, their religious viewpoint into our law is literally the Christian right. They're the ones that are sitting there saying, "Oh, we need to have the law, the 10 commandments on the city in the classrooms, because the Democrats are trying to indoctrinate us." Which is, by the way, schools indoctrinating you. The whole root word of doctrine is teach. They're literally mad that schools teach students. Anyway, even though the Jews have a community patrol and the Catholic Church literally has ecclesiastical courts in Vatican City. And then they're all complaining that the people go on their own free will to do their local religious officials for a religious opinion on how they should do a divorce or burial. Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, they have a different religion. How dare they? Which I would apparently, yeah, exactly. Make Israel great again. Conservatives. And I get there are some people that think that the Democrats are too in bed with AIPAC, and I think some of them probably are, but they're not as in bed with AIPAC as the Russians, or I mean, that's the Republicans. And is there any difference anymore? That might have been a Freudian slip. Oh no, he's actually getting things done. What'll incompetent MAGA do? They'll spend billions of propaganda to make manipulated idiots vote against their own interests. Exactly. Nothing I like conservative. I like conservative. Says he has any value. They're all deceitful rats. I like that one, Tolkien. Is that an original, conservatives? I like it. I'm on Fox TV right now, too, on Fox. Wipe out Hezbollah, reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Does that mean that Flashfire is typing spam? I don't know who the is that, like, I don't know. But if on Fox News there's somebody saying wipe out Hezbollah, what does that mean? Like, wipe out the entire country of Lebanon? How do you wipe out Hezbollah? Oh, look, another old gray-haired Democratic lunatic. Oh, look, another gutless, spineless Republican, Nazi fascist weirdo who, like, just comes on and says stupid things. I would prefer proffer anything any politician says is BS. Well, then, you know, I would proffer. I don't care that you proffer that. Nothing as a conservative says has any value. They're all deceitful rats. Want to mute someone in the... Oh, yes, this is the new thing. If you want to mute somebody in the chat, just send me $5 for 5 minutes, $10 for 10 minutes, $25 for a day, $100 to ban forever. Of course, this does not apply to Brett or Dusty or any of the moderators. You can't have them ban themselves. Al Sayed is actually running on something pretty similar to DSA. He's actually not DSA, like he says he is not DSA. But there are definitely a lot of overlap, especially like with the Medicare for All. Why come here to poop post? We don't come to your trailer and kick the truck parts off your coffee table. Also, get a PFP. I think the audio. Oh, dadgummit, what is going on with that? Hang on a second. I'm gonna try something. It's doing that again. I don't know why. What happened? Why is it all of a sudden doing that? I'm gonna. I think it might be the Wi-Fi. So. All right, so I've got it hardwired in now. So hopefully that solves that problem. If not, I don't know what to do. Might have to try a different microphone or something. It's okay on my end, Dusty. The Strait of Hormel. Is that like? Is it chilly there? Okay, it's back for me. Mossad managed to get those pager bombs through somehow. That's terrifying. I need to be a mod. Hey, yeah, Mo, you can be a mod. Brett, I think you have the power to add mods. So if you want to add Mo on as a mod, that's fine. I think we've shared the CIA. I think you have almost all the power I have, Brett. I think that I've shared the CIA manual to simple sabotage. This is a direct example of the accusing the leftists having regular conversations of being evil. Oh, I voted. So you're in Michigan. I voted El Sayed yesterday, but I am still upset about him help Trump win 2024 in Michigan. Oh, did he? Because of the Gaza thing? I don't know about that. I mean, I do think, like I was saying yesterday, at this point, we just need to say vote blue no matter who means vote blue no matter who. I think we should have learned over the last couple of years, right? You can get worse. Pagers. I needed a laugh. That was funny. I hope it was something I said. Oh, the Hormel. Is it chilly there? I hopefully that was, at least I had a good pun on the pun show. With our own language, it's like, no, it's intentional. If the CIA or abusers want to destroy you, they will nitpick or accuse you of things your organization hates. It's intentional to take away context. Yeah, there's like these commercials that are coming out against El Sayed, where he's like, talking about how he's dangerous, and he's like, in the context, he's like, I'm dangerous if you don't want Medicare for all, Mo, go to the late. Okay. It's a declassified manual. They are doing it. Hi, Big Bry. Hi. I'll have to add you as a moderator through his latest video. Hi. All right, so I'm going to do this. Maybe I might do this with a couple of guys. I might also do it with Talarico. I wanted to talk about something before I do this. This was something else I wanted to talk about. I was looking at they're always streaming they're on TV. There's always these ads I live in Texas, and there are all these ads about AI and how wonderful AI is. Or not AI, data centers. Like how great they are for communities and how great they are for, jobs and all of this stuff. And Texas, they're really, really unpopular. I looked up the numbers. They're 50% or 56% oppose them, only 26% approve of them. So it's like 2-1. You have they're 12 points underwater with Republicans, 30 points underwater with Democrats, and like 25 points underwater with independents. Like nobody likes them. All like Republicans, Democrats, independents, nobody likes them. Nobody wants them. In Texas, we've had a couple of issues recently One, we've had droughts, and the droughts have actually impacted the cattle farming. And then when the cattle that has layered, um, because the droughts have caused the impact has impacted the cattle farming. They've had to like butcher the heifers to stay afloat, which means that now they had to raise new cows. To a heifer is like a cow that's had a baby. Um, so they've had to raise a whole new set of heifers, and that takes like 2 years. You can't just do that overnight. It's not like chickens where you can replace them in one season. It takes a couple of years. And then they have to have a baby, and then that's got to take another year before they can be slaughtered. So it's like this real um, time thing that happens, right? And then you've already got like low supply of cattle due to the droughts. Then on top of that, you've got the fertilizer and things like that, and fence posts. You know, all the like. There's a number of things that are involved in raising cattle where the cost have gone up due to tariffs. Then on top of all of that, you have the Argentine beef, where Trump cut the tariffs on the Argentine beef to lower the beef prices, but that's another punch to the Texas cattle farmers. But anyway, Texas cattle farmers, through no fault of their own, have had some real struggles lately. And data centers come in, and one of the big problems has been the water. And so then when data centers come in and they use a lot of water, and there's some different types of data centers that don't use as much water and blah blah blah, but there's still issues. So just in Texas, they don't like data centers. They're really anti-data center. And Ken Paxton is like, oh yeah, we need to have the data centers. He's all pro data center, and he's like, yeah, we need to look at how to mitigate some of the damage, but he has no plan on how, and he has no specifics. And Tallarico is like, I don't want to ban them, but we need to make sure that they're not affecting taxpayers. They're not getting tax sweetheart deals. That they're not, making it so that Texans don't have power or water. Like the Texans, actual residents, need to take priority over the data centers. And so he has a much more reasonable position. And this is something, like I said, that it's bipartisan. It's tripartisan if you want to count the independents as a different party. Like nobody likes them. And everybody is going to like prefer Tallarico's position on this than Paxton. And I was thinking, it's like when all these commercials where you've got the tech billionaires that are sitting there telling us how wonderful all these are, and they're actually really, really annoying to watch because that they're not these big, wonderful things. And it's like somebody pooping on a plate and telling you it's a steak. And then they have a big, TV commercial with a big steaming pile of poop on a plate. And you're supposed to be, oh, I love poop on plates. And Ken Paxton's the one that's taking the poop. And so I just feel like, these data centers are spending all of this money on advertising, and Texans are going to see through that, and they're going to be like, I don't want any of that. And it's actually going to be counterproductive. It's going to actually, James Tallarico is actually benefiting from these ads because they're actually pushing people away from Ken Paxton. This is my opinion. I believe this. I'm not saying that I have any research confirming it, but I honestly think that this could be what tips the election over to Tallarico. Hey Kitty, how you doing? I hope you got your RAR on. It's not exactly in my top 10 things I hate. I can think of a lot worse things than a data center. Well, if you lived in Texas where we didn't have water and where we lost power for 3 weeks, and you saw how much data centers take power and water, then you would definitely not want them in your backyard. I can't add mod through live stream, only if he comments on a short or a video. I don't know why. Okay. I can find it afterwards and add them. If you haven't been able to do it, don't worry about it. I'll take care of them afterwards until you live on the next one. I'll trade you a for a dinner center for an oil refinery, data center for an oil refinery. Uh, I commented on okay. UBS financial institution for money laundering. Trump's personal finances are linked to Trump. Um, oh, I don't know that one. Is this a new thing? Hang on, let me check on this. Uh, okay, there is some financial relationship between UBS and Trump, but there's no evidence so far that they're connected to the AML fine. There is the new court filing from Capital One that shows that they closed Trump's accounts because he had patterns that are connected to money laundering. It's interesting how much stuff Trump and money laundering are coming up together. I take the, I'm always for a diner center. Can't have too many diner centers. Isn't it odd that Trump says he doesn't care about polls and yet he spends every waking moment crying about 2020 polls? And any poll that he doesn't like, and then he makes up new polls. Apparently he's never been this high in the polls. I don't know which polls he's talking about. Maybe the North Pole, South Pole. I don't know. Every time you ask Google Gemini something, you dumping 2 bottles of water on the ground. Gotta research somehow. I don't know. There's some. Is that? I'm not asking Google Gemini. I'm asking Chat, but probably same thing. I am hunting today. I am hurting today. Been without my sleep meds for a couple of weeks and may end up being without them for a long time. Oh, my hubby got laid off. I'm sorry. There's a lot of that going around. So Kitty has a new article on her Substack today that is really worth reading. And she brings up that there's this, like the way that they release the files, it's not enough people have not talked about that, like that they just dumped all these millions of documents and just said, here they are, without any kind of way of organizing them or something, just the chaos, so that you'd have to like wade through them. And it's like, where's the contract? And you say it's in here, and then you hand somebody 2 million pages that they have to page through. You hit it by giving it to them. I think that's kind of the gist of her argument, that all of this, like releasing everything at once in this big pile of stuff, is actually kind of a way of hiding it. So anyway, give it a read. I feel so sorry for Texas and the United States. It's being destroyed by Islam. You will never take my bacon chicken ranch pizza away from me. Pork will win in the end. All right. I don't know what all that's about. So I'm scared because my meds are really, really expensive. So it looks like I have new choice. Oh. Can you start working more? Oh, man. Kitty, that sucks. Uh, the Supreme Court is nuts. Have you seen how much they are using the shadow docket? Yes, to try and bully lower courts, trying to stop Donald Trump breaking the Constitution and federal law. And the thing about the shadow docket is that when they use the shadow docket, they don't have to explain themselves, and they don't explain themselves. And then now they're saying they're not going to use it as much or blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, they actually came out with a ruling that was 6-3 recently that I thought was interesting. And I had. actually agree with this one. The 3 liberal justices and 3 of the conservative justices agreed on it that they can't just use your cell phone to track your cell phone's whereabouts without a warrant, and they can't get the information from like Google or whatever, which is what they were trying to do. 2 of the 6 conservative justices have previously stated that they don't believe shadow docket rulings should have precedent, and now they have just reprimanded a district judge for saying that those rulings don't have precedent. Well, which rulings don't have precedent? The ones anyway. We need to get a new Supreme Court. Did you hear Kamala Harris? In an interview, she was talking about it's time to. She's like, we need to start talking about some of the difficult things, and then she started saying things like, we need to have the Supreme Court needs to be raised to 13 members because we have 13 districts, so we should have 13 Supreme Court justices. That's when we went to 9 courts. The reasoning was we had 9 districts, and so we needed 1 justice for each district. And so, in keeping with that, we should have 13 justices. That seems reasonable. We should make D.C. and Puerto Rico states if that's what they want. She talked about we need to start looking at whether or not there needs to be term limits on Supreme Court justices. These are some things that are really pet talking points of people that are further to the left. And if you did not hear her saying these things, you might be interested in hearing them, because I think that she has been misportrayed as being like more moderate than she is. I mean, moderate by our standards. I think it's pretty normal to think that somebody in D.C. should have the same rights to vote as somebody in California or Texas. When the nation was founded, D.C. was basically the people that worked for the government. That's why it wasn't an electoral vote. Now there's like 1 million people that live in D.C. Why don't we just build all the data centers in Antarctica or something? I mean, that's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't know how you'd get the power there. There's, especially because you couldn't really do solar, right? Because you'd only have power 6 months out of the year. Elon Musk has brought up the idea of building them in space, and that's interesting. I don't know what there might be some cost issues there, but the idea would be that you wouldn't have to worry about cooling because it's in outer space, and you'd have unlimited power because you'd have the sun to power them. The shadow docket is kind of shady. Following culture, the news, or politics is neurotic. No, it's not. What's neurotic is going around from stream to stream, making this comment every single day, Tom. Need power. Hi, Brentwood. Oh. All right. Now that would be a better idea. They wouldn't need water to cool the processors. It would be cooler, but I mean, how would you power them? You'd power them with stripper poles? There's too many jokes I've got right now. My brain is overloading. Lupus. Oh, the lupus. Oh, yeah, that's right. You have lupus. Oh, kitty. What about Cobra? That's the Substack if you want to click on it. It's a good. That was well written too, Kitty. I really like that one. I suggest your wiki all the time. Um, if I work more, I have to give up Kitty and wiki, and I just can't. Yeah, it's hard to like do something meaningful and then stop doing it. Are you also an Austrian painter enthusiast? I no. Kamala Harrison is only I well, the interview that she gave was fairly recent. Pick the courts so they can get favorable rulings. So Democrat pack the courts. The courts are packed, Mike. They were packed by the Republicans. Right now, the Republicans have a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court, and they have like 30% of the population coincides with the philosophy of the Supreme Court. It is packed. It is packed. It's not packing the Supreme Court, it's unpacking the Supreme Court. Mitch McConnell's the one that's packed the Supreme Court when he denied Barack Obama the right to nominate a justice, and then turned around and nominated a justice with just a month to go. 2 of those justices should be Democrats, should have been appointed by Biden and Obama in a fair and honest world. But, Mitch McConnell's going to Mitch McConnell. Has Clarence Thomas ever done anything for our country instead of himself? Not that I'm aware of. Imagine pissing away $1.3 million for each round of golf, then getting on TV to put down Americans calling them blue-haired communists because they want food, health, housing. Puerto Rico should be a state. The idea is it shouldn't is ridiculous unless they literally vote it down in a referendum on statehood. Now, this is interesting, and I'm not sure how I stand on this. Puerto Rico actually did pass a referendum on statehood saying that they wanted to be a state. However, there was a significant portion of the population that banned the vote because I can't remember why. I think that it was like, do you want to you remain a territory or do you want to be a state? And there was nothing on there about do you want to be an independent nation. And so I think, if I remember right, it was like something like that. That there was an option on that most of the territory of Puerto Rico wanted an option on there that was not on there. And since that was not on there, they just boycotted the vote. So it passed by a huge percentage, but with like less than half the people voting. I heard. Oh, okay. This is not a Bible channel, dude. Trump is high in the Trump is high in the stripper polls. Oh, there you go. Russia just released a new mini drone utilizing AI without human control. Once launched with an explosive device, can track you by phones, car, etc. Wow. Cobra is very expensive. Yeah, it is. It's like, and the better insurance you have, your employer has, the more you feel the difference with Cobra, because you're paying for the whole bill that you and your employer used to pay combined. Oh man. Transfer the trust from yourself to the city, blah blah blah. Michael, you owe Kelly $5. I muted you for 5 minutes. Power them by harnessing the power of waves or skepticism altogether. Or skip them altogether. I don't know if you're going to get enough power out of that. Trump hates the sun and wind energy. He still calls them windmills. What the hell do they mill? It's not a grain. And it's so funny. It's like if you're going to rant about something as an old coot that doesn't understand, like, can you be a little less metaphorically obvious than tilting at windmills? Like, he is literally tilting at windmills. Like, I'd never understood why that was an expression until Donald Trump came along and started tilting at windmills. Who should pay for their food, health, or housing? Who should pay for whose food or health or housing? I don't even know who you're talking about. This is just like, do you know what a non sequitur is, Mike? Billionaires, Elon? I think DC is an interesting case because of its role that is supposed to play according to the Constitution and just in general. So I think there is an argument for not giving DC statehood. Yeah, and that's why I distinguish between what it was originally and what it is now. Like, all of the people, all the elected representatives and stuff that work in DC aren't actually living in DC. The people who live in DC don't work in DC, other than like as like McDonald's or whatever. Like the main residents of DC are not members of the government, and the members of the government don't live in DC. So it seems like while that distinction might have been made initially with a good reason, it's no longer valid. Territory, not terrorists, not have the same representation in our government. I think there was a speech to text thing there. Territories don't have the same representation in our government as a state. I think there was a constitutional amendment that gave DC 3 electoral votes, but they don't have any congressmen. They don't have any senators. They're not statehood. YTF is his cabinet scared of an 80-year-old interior designer with that nasty cotton candy helmet he calls hair, and a bottle of super glue and some gold plastic. Cobra is a ripoff. I mean, this is just I'm going to go through. El Sayed is right. We need whether you call it Medicare for all or something else. We need to have something like healthcare should not be a thing that we have to be concerned about. We're the wealthiest nation in the world. We're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, and we can't even provide healthcare for our own citizens. All kinds of other countries have figured out how to do that. Why can't we? Why can't we do it if everybody else can? Nobody sits there and says, who's going to pay for it? In all those other countries. Because it's a stupid question. The taxpayers are going to pay for it. And you know who the taxpayers are? We are. They always want to, the right always wants to make it like there's this group of people called the taxpayers, and then there's this group of people called the beneficiaries, and then never the twain shall meet. Oh, why do you have to take my money? And it's like, no, don't be so stupid. Why should taxpayer money not be going to taxpayers? That should be the whole point of it. If I pay taxes, I should benefit from the taxes. And so should you. Why is it only Elon Musk gets $38 billion from my taxes? Why are we talking about whether or not, some poor kid with cancer got treated for health care and whether that's fair, and we don't talk about why the trillionaire is getting billions of dollars from the government? Accidentally stumbled upon a Newsmax live thread today. It was so scary, some new Alex Jones wannabe stoking fear. Oh man, the Newsmax is like for people that are that think Fox News is too communist. Like Newsmax is just like, they probably talk about what a liberal hippie Hitler was. I think either Maryland or Virginia should agree that residents of D.C. can vote in their uh, House and Senate elections and then scrap the non voting delegate that D.C. currently gets. And I think, no, that's not going to work for a lot of reasons. But I think mostly D.C. has its own identity. It should be a state. I see no reason that D.C. should not be a state. Billionaires shouldn't fund everything just because they. Nobody says that billionaires should fund everything just because they have money. You should actually try having an honest conversation, Mike. They should fund more of it. Yes, they should pay more taxes. They shouldn't be like limps prevented from paying taxes just because they have money. Like, this is just why. Can you have an honest conversation, Mike? Can you please try? Where did it even come from? Nobody's sitting there arguing that only billionaires should have to pay taxes. False information. There's nothing stating she hates white. I don't even know where. There must be something that got messed up or skipped. But I have a feeling that Mike is not a very honest person. D.C. isn't populous enough to be a state. It's the cities. What about West Virginia? Okay, West Virginia. Okay, wait. So the state with the lowest population is Wyoming, which is 580,000. And then actually, D.C. has more people than Wyoming. Wyoming has 580,000 people, and D.C. has 690,000 people. So it has about 20% more people than Wyoming. Our forefathers are rolling in their graves with how this country turned. Well, what about the other three? Sorry. Our forefathers. I mean, agreed. There is also that Nikki, but I think if we go by historical standards, D.C. would probably qualify. Yeah. Now, Wyoming has less people than D.C. Billionaires are the biggest welfare queens in history. OMFG, I am dead. The cotton care, candy, and glue, I am dead. I wish I could follow you on other networks now. She's talking to you, Brett. America's a sinking ship. Do you know that during the World Cup, the United States was the only country who did not have universal health care? Yes. Yes. We're actually one of the very few countries in the world that don't have universal health care. And we're also by far the wealthiest country in the world without universal health care. There are some that do it better than others. There's, that, but we should have single payer. I'm willing to give my tax dollars to that instead of another war on foreign aid. And when you talk about one thing that people don't look at when they're talking about single payer is that, yes, they are paying that money for taxes in taxes, but that is money that they are not paying in healthcare premiums. So it's like, if you had to pay $500 extra in taxes to pay for your healthcare, but it saved you $1,000 in healthcare premiums, and then you didn't have to worry about your deductible anymore, you're actually coming out ahead financially. And when it comes to per capita spending on healthcare, we're like twice what England is. England has some issues. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we spend twice as much per capita as England. Harry will tell you England's not perfect, but I don't see anybody in England going, "Oh, we should do it like America does." We could, if we reinstate the FDR New Deal taxes. I think we could definitely, we don't need to tax the hell out of the wealthy, but we could just tax them normally. I did some research on this because I was just curious. And if you were to take the billionaires, when we say they don't pay their fair share, they actually don't pay their fair share. Because what they do is they don't live off of income. They lay off. They live off of their wealth. Um, Income is not even like a real thing to them. They're not sitting there. They don't get paychecks, right? Elon Musk does not get paid by Tesla, and then he's like, "Oh, I got to go cash my paycheck." Elon Musk just his wealth changes, and he borrows against the wealth that he has. And then he borrows again to pay off the debt. But because his wealth has increased, his ability to borrow becomes more. He just borrows money when he needs it. He doesn't have to sell stocks to do anything. And he's gotten $38 billion from the government through the course of his career, and he has paid $16 billion in taxes. So he's $20 billion ahead, right? Then when you look at the top 10, if you take the top 10 wealthiest people in the United States, and you look at that they live off of their wealth, and if you were to take their wealth increase and how much they paid in taxes, they're only paying like a tiny percentage of what they actually make. If we're talking realistically, if you're worth $10,000 and then a year later you're worth $40,000, then you made $30,000 that year, right? At least, because you also had all your living expenses. So if you were to tax their wealth increase at the same rate that you tax other people's income, then you would make as much money, enough money to pay off the entire year's worth of SNAP benefit cuts. The entire year's worth of SNAP benefits cuts. Just by taxing the wealthy the same amount that you tax the middle class. And I don't see why there's an issue with that. I don't, like people are like, oh, they have to sell their stocks. No, they don't have to sell their stocks, and I don't really care if they did. Put tax liens on people's homes. People have to sell their houses to pay for taxes. I don't really care if Elon Musk has to sell some stock to pay for his taxes. I'm not going to get a feelings boo-boo over that. Because we could definitely stop sending so much money to Israel, that's for sure. Remember how many little countries there were during the World Cup whom we had never even heard of? They all had universal health care. It's hard to find a country that doesn't have universal health care. We are the extreme in this. That's when, like, this show's titled today, would the real extremists please stand up? Because we're the extreme. We're the extreme. They're sitting there. You have people talking about El Sayed being an extremist while you've got a president of the United States who just made up a story in the middle of a stump speech about how there was this big 45-foot gash, and then they went out and they tried to make up a scenario where a U.S. Olympian had somehow caused that gash by touching water after he talked about the gash. The space-time continuum doesn't even work with the crime that they were making up. And they were ready to prosecute him and send him to jail for 10 years just to back a lie that Donald Trump fabricated out of thin air. And the man that was responsible for it, the man that was in charge of the Justice Department while all of this is happening, they want to make attorney general. And not one Republican that's sitting there talking about extremists is willing to say, maybe we shouldn't be prosecuting people for made-up crimes. And then Al Sayed's the extremist because he thinks people should have health care? Who's the real extremist? We will come to USA through the fence that Trump built. Yeah, all kinds of ways through it. I'm happy that Abdul won. Is it illegal what Trump is doing, selling a public land in Utah? Oh, I don't think. He can do whatever he wants, apparently. Is it true he's funneling money into his own Bitcoin? I don't know about that one. OMG, Kelly, you are killing me today. You are so bleeping funny. Thank you. I think I did one of those things where I was funny without realizing I was being funny. Worst thing our government did was deregulate and allow private cops to write the rules for our free market trade. Worst thing our government did was deregulate. Well, I think that's private corporations to write the rules for our free market trades. Yes. And that was intentional because the people that the government that did the deregulating was purchased by the corporations. And then they were approved to do that by the Supreme Court through Citizens United. Do you see how it all works together? The billionaire buys the politicians that pass the laws that say that they can do whatever they want, and then they buy the Supreme Court to tell the Constitution, the Congress, what to pass, or that what the Congress has passed is okay, and then they have a president of the United States who sits there and just does whatever the hell he wants anyway. But he's one of them. And so he's just out there selling whatever to whoever. He's making billions of dollars off of being president and sitting there talking about how he doesn't take a salary. He doesn't take a salary because he takes bribes. Yes, they can pay more than that's a progressive tax, but I feel there's a lot of people who refuse to contribute but want all the benefits. I don't know who these people are. And I think that I don't know who the people are who want, like, if we're talking about the typical American, I don't know who doesn't want to contribute or who has that choice. But I think there's also, like we talk about, there's this a fallacy that gets floated about income taxes, right? And they talk about how the top 10% pay 50% of income taxes. And it's like the top 10% also own like 80% of our wealth. But that's not even the whole thing, because it also undersells what the rest of the country pays in taxes, because you're only looking at one tax. There's Social Security taxes, right? There's sales taxes, there's property taxes, and the state and federal taxes and local taxes, they're all kept separately. But what happens is when the federal government cuts taxes, then the state and the local taxes go up to compensate for the lack of federal revenue that's coming in to help them pay for things. So it's like the federal budget cuts school funding. So now you need more money in the local schools. And so they raise the property taxes. Okay? Then when you raise the property taxes, the people that rent out apartments and rent out homes have to raise the rent to pay for the taxes. So now what you have is you have people that can't afford homes, so they have to rent, and they're paying more money to compensate for the lost taxes to the local school district that were lost, that was a progressive tax. So you've fundamentally shifted a progressive tax into a regressive tax, and then you just make it seem like, oh, this is fair. I'm not saying you're doing that, Mike. I'm saying this is the logic of the whole federal tax thing. Is it's only looking at one kind of tax. When you look at all the taxes, it's a lot flatter than it should be. And progressive taxes, to me, is 100% not only fair, it's better for the economy. Tax dollars that go to like a SNAP benefit, every dollar in SNAP benefits has like has a multiplier, meaning that it multiplies 1.7 times, right? Tax cuts to billionaires have like a 0.7 multiplier, meaning it actually takes money out of the economy. It doesn't add money back into the economy. It takes money out of the economy. The money that you give in SNAP benefits actually multiplies and adds money to the economy. So, and this is why we have this tax shift, or this wealth shift over the last 40 years, because we keep cutting taxes to the rich and cutting benefits to the poor to pay for them, even though they're not being paid for. So there are some things like we don't have to tax the hell out of billionaires. Why can't we just like raise the cap on how much you pay into Social Security? Instead of capping it at like I think it's $144,000 or something if you're an individual, and like 250 if you're married. Why not just double that? You could add a whole bunch of money in Social Security taxes. And then you don't have to worry about Social Security not being solvent anymore. Mandatory paid days off, parental leave, public higher education. Public higher education to me is like it should be a no-brainer. It's better for the country. It's better for the country if somebody that's smart enough to get a PhD can get a PhD. Like if you have geniuses that are not able to get PhDs because just their parents don't make enough money, why not? Why shouldn't they be able to go to school? A lot of people don't want to pay taxes or contribute to the system at the minute because they get nothing back from the system. And that's true too. So we need to but I think that's why we need to evaluate what we get back from the system. I want not just for myself to get something back from the system, but for society as a whole. Ronald says, serious topics. America pays comparable tax rates overall across the federal, state, and local governments to our national and local government taxes. Yep, and we get we don't get the same thing back. We get a military that goes and kills people in Iran. You get health care and secondary education. And yet you guys get significantly less from your government than we get. Exactly. Harry, who would that be? I can't imagine a human that doesn't get back something from taxes. We don't get the same amount back from taxes, Winner. That's what he's saying. They have national health care. We don't, right? So England is getting more back in their taxes than Americans are. He's not saying we don't get anything. He's just saying that we don't get enough. I'm saying, comparatively to most countries, you don't get anywhere near as much back from the government. If we just reinstated corporate taxes and capital gains taxes, we could easily fund a one-payer system. Problem is, bureaucracy would eat up most of the taxes, and then they would want more. This is a misconception. If you look at, military hospitals, or if you look at veteran care, or if you look at Medicare, the administrative, they're much more efficient administratively than private healthcare. And when I was in the Air Force, I worked in medical administration, so I'm not just spouting off. And it's like I knew the people that had to work in that area, and they have to sit there and there's like all these different forms you have to fill out for all the different insurance companies, and you have to kind of it's like you got 10 different things you have to worry about instead of one. And so the administrative costs for federal funded Medicare is actually a lot cheaper than the administrative cost for private funding. I mean, let's look at it. And I don't remember, I don't know what the percentages are now, but it used to be like 30% to 3%. I mean, let's look at it. Your welfare system is a joke. Your healthcare system is a disgrace. Your education system is laughable. The DMV is a comedy show. There is literally a comedy show about the DMV. Also, America pays $11,000 per head for healthcare. We pay $5,000 per head for healthcare. Well, I mean, what's wrong with paying more to get less? That's capitalism. Why are you so concerned about somebody getting $100 in food, but not about a billionaire stealing billions from America? Kelly, it's because the healthcare system is here for... But you don't really need to have the healthcare. I don't have a problem with the healthcare system being here for profit. And we're talking about two different things that get conflated, Mike. There's the healthcare system, and then there's how we pay for our healthcare system. Those are two different things. They're not the same thing. You can still have privately funded healthcare, and that can have a profit motive, right? But some of that profit motive then becomes who provides. Like, it's actually more competitive. It's actually better for competition because then the only thing you're competing for is who provides the best healthcare. You know, the best. The shortest waiting limits, stuff like that. So it's not like healthcare being for uh, profit and health insurance being single payer. Those two things don't have to go to contradict each other. And when I'll read it, I'll get to it in a minute. But El Sayed is actually a lot of people that say Medicare for all just think that it means you need to make Medicare available for everybody. Not everybody has to use it. If you want to have private insurance, you can. What middle class? The middle class Trump killed. FK Trump. I do not support him. He is about himself, not Americans. I agree with that. Wyoming has a population more lower than most U.S. cities. You don't have a clue. You're just parroting poop. You heard on reels. Okay. Tired of hearing the wealthiest nation in the world, such BS. The most indebted nation in the world cannot be the wealthiest. Well, we can be both. Um, Warren Buffett said himself his housekeeper pays more in taxes than he does. Elon Musk takes a low salary, but he gets a lot of stock and uses that as collateral on loans. He didn't found Tesla, didn't found PayPal, didn't found the SpaceX. He just buys companies, gets them government contracts, and then makes a lot of money. Then he puts them on the stock market and makes a bunch of money off of that. All of you, all of you, all of you, bunch of parrots. Polly want a cracker? No, no, he's talking to Randall, Mike. Deep down, you know you're wrong. I'm not political. I just know right from wrong, and I'm stepping up to fix the poopy things that are happening right now, and maybe the poopy side I've taken in the past. You are spicy today. I love spicy, Kelly. I think I'm just tired of the silliness. We are not funding things based on taxes. We are funding things based on continuous borrowing, something like $40 billion a week in borrowing. Um, we are definitely borrowing a lot of money. Um, I'm not sure how much there's. I would say that we could be borrowing a lot less money if we started spending money a lot more wisely. I don't think we always talk about, oh, we're spending too much money, and then first of all, we're borrowing money not because we're spending it, but because we're not making it. Like, if you have trouble paying your bills, you don't go and you ask your boss for a pay cut. Like, that's not the way that you get your ahead on your bills. You don't go and get a pay cut so that you can pay your bills, right? You ask for a pay raise. And we keep cutting our bills or keep cutting our paycheck and wondering why we're going further and further into debt. Maybe it's because we're cutting our revenue. You go back, you look at through history. Every time we have had a major tax cut, what is immediately followed is a huge increase in the deficit. Almost like cutting our revenue causes more going into debt. It's like, how can nobody figure this out? So yeah, I think we need to tax more. I think we need to tax more, and I think we need to tax the wealthy more. And then I think we need to give more money to people that aren't wealthy, because that stimulates the economy. That has a multiplier effect. And actually, in the end, if you tax wealthy people more, I know this is counterintuitive, but in the end, if you tax wealthy people more and then take that money and give it to poor people, that money will come back in greater volume to the same wealthy people. That's how the economy works. It's called a multiplier for a reason. It multiplies. If you take 2 rabbits from a billionaire and you give them to a poor person, those 2 rabbits will end up being 25 rabbits, and then you can give 20 of those rabbits back to the billionaire. Does that follow? Do you see what I'm saying? It's a multiplier. It multiplies. When you take the tax money from a billionaire and you give it to a poor person, that poor person spends it. And so let's say you have a supermarket, right? And you get these SNAP benefits, and you got 1,000 people in that community that they each get $100 in SNAP benefits. And then they go and they spend that money every month. They spend an extra $100,000 in the grocery store. And so that's $100,000 a month that grocery store is getting that it wasn't getting, right? That's $1.2 million a year. And so with that $1.2 million a year, it hires workers. And so it hires, let's say, 20 workers, each of whom makes $40,000 a year. They're well paid, all right? So that's $800,000 for the workers and another $400,000 that the store gets to keep, that goes on up, right? But then those $40,000, that's people that pay rent. That's people that buy food. That's people that, go out to eat. That's people that go to the movies. That's people that buy clothes. They spend all of that money. And then all of that money goes to malls and Best Buys and, Denny's restaurants and all of that kind of stuff. And then the people that work there, they get to make more money. And this is what happens, is the money gets spent and respent and respent, and it multiplies. It goes up. But every time some of it gets spent, some of it goes to the owner. And then the owner has to buy stuff, and some of it goes back to them. And so it matriculates itself up. Money does not trickle down. Money trickles up. So when you take that money and you invest it in poor people, it actually becomes more money, and it goes back up to the billionaires. So if billionaires want to make more money, tax them more money, and they will get more money. Believe it or not, that's how the economy works. A Trump, a legend in his own mind. He is certainly that. And his little sycophant, I call him sycophantasy. These kind of fantasy sycophant little cartoon drawing AI things they do, where he's like a cartoon Rambo astronaut superhero. I would support a centrist Democrat at this point. I don't even know what centrist means anymore. I would support anybody that's willing to say that Todd Blanche shouldn't be attorney general. Like, the attorney general should just be somebody that enforces the law. If we have to pay taxes on our home's worth, which is an unrealized gain tax, why can't we tax stock values? Exactly. That's a very fair point. That is an excellent point, Chris. Trump's bank account's getting canceled for money laundering. That one, and it's like, we just totally just whatever. It's just because of the fire hose and nonsense that comes out of that administration every single day that you can't like focus on everything. Can you imagine if what James Comey would be doing right now if Joe Biden's banks had bank accounts shut down because of money laundering patterns? Can you imagine what Jim Jordan would be screaming? And you don't hear a peep from him. Where's the oversight committee? They're not overseeing, they're overlooking. Land of the greed and home of the slaves. Someday I might get a $5 check or a $5 bonus. Kamala Harris wanted to, Chris. Use your citizen grand jury powers. Or if you want to get banned at no charge, be an arsehole, and that will earn you a free ticket to getting banned. Yes, if you want to get yourself banned. Just a fun fact, the only president who purposed a universal health care was Nixon. He sent the bill back because Congress wanted to make it lower. I didn't know about that, but I would say he's not the first person. He's not the only one. He's definitely not the first. You know who the first person to propose universal health care was? Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt wanted. Actually, if you go back and you look at a lot of stuff Teddy Roosevelt was for, he'd be called a socialist nowadays. The moderators will not ban you if you carry on a normal conversation. Don't go off the rails. Yeah. So basically, don't be a racist. Don't just come in spamming things like people that just spam the same comment 25 times. And at least try to not be a troll, you know? We're pretty flexible. Problem with our whole tax system is there is no oversight or transparency. Look at the California super rail system, a great example of bureaucracy run amok. I don't know too much about that. I hesitate to jump onto generalities, though. I think that sometimes things can get distorted, and I think that there are people that willfully distort things, and then they get picked up and repeated. I don't know anything about it. I've never looked into it, so I don't know anything about it. Yeah, Mike doesn't seem like Mike seems like he's here in good faith. I don't have any issues with Mike. I wish I was a fly on the wall when Trump found out about Texas today. What happened in Texas today? I don't know about Texas today, and I live in Texas. Okay, hang on. Yeah, I don't know what happened in Texas. What happened with Texas today? I don't know. I had to. I heard he changed his mind on the 57th warning to Iran. I haven't watched the new. I wonder what Trump thinks about Minnesota today. All I know is he's sitting there talking about how it's great for the Republicans that El Said won because El Said is a communist, and nobody wants a communist to win, and he only won because the elections were rigged, and this is proof that the elections are rigged. And I don't know. He just said typical Trump diarrhea stuff, and he went on about he had a big diatribe about how the one biker or the one canoe guy, the kayaker, was really a vandal, and how Janine Pinero was a bad person for not sending him to jail on made up stuff. The funded higher education is a good idea as long as there are standards and viable programs. Yeah, and I think, like if you're qualified, you should be qualified. I say the only thing that should stop a person from moving upward are their ambition and their potential. Right? Those two things. Like if you don't have the ability, you shouldn't just go and get a medical degree. But if you have the ability to be a doctor, and you have the desire to be a doctor and to do the work to become a doctor, money should not be something that keeps you from becoming a doctor. Good afternoon, Mark. How you doing today? I was thinking about you just about half an hour ago because we were talking about how, we've got a government now where it seems like the people that you've got the corporations on the all three branches of government, basically. Like they tell the government, like Congress passes the laws that the corporations want them to pass, and then the Supreme Court is bought by people like Peter Thiel, and they do what they want them to do. And then you've got Donald Trump does what they want them to do, and so you've got the same group of people that own all three branches of government, and we have a kind of a guise of democracy. So I was thinking you might have some input on all that based on your prior comments. There's plenty of different systems for what you would call socialized medicine. There's my country's version of absolute socialized medicine where they own all the hospitals, employ all the doctors, employ all the nurses, own all the ambulances and everything. Um, there, okay. Okay, I'm going to skip past your comment to finish Harry's comment, and then I'll come back, Walter. There is France where the healthcare providers are private, but there is a national security system which is billed rather than the individual. Right. And then there are some, I think, there are some companies where I think France, I think, is one of them where you have like the national insurance, but you can also buy additional insurance if for like if you want that. So Walter says, speaking of the military, ICE agents are targeting military spouses. At least 51 spouses and parents of active duty U.S. service members have been put into ICE. What a like at a certain point, you're just being assholes about it. I call them ice holes. Bunch of ice holes is what they are. Capitalism actually works when you realize free market means free for all to participate, not free from regulation, caps, and oversight. Now, well, that's what they would like it to mean. Unless it's, means that they get government subsidies for gas or whatever. All our knowledge of healthcare, and simply said, running a well-oiled machine is available to watch. It's not just profitable for some, and if you really think about it, where is the most profitable? And I think maybe that we put too much stock into profitable. Like maybe what makes profit, maybe that should not be the end all and be all of everything. Maybe our sole priority should not be whether something makes money or not. If you have investments in the correct enterprises, a war that we are supporting are a part of this tremendously profitable. I learned this personally during Vietnam. Yeah, Vietnam was a big time war machine thing. And the 80s, GE. If you ever get bored, look up GE Iron Triangle during the Reagan years. That's exactly what we're talking about. Iron Triangle. You had the same people in the government, in the lobby, and in the GE power structure that they just kind of revolved around. Same people, and then they just got more and more money off of the taxpayers. I'm just tired of both parties harming Americans, high taxes, but we don't actually have that high of taxes. We like our tax rate is really not that high. I think that where we've seen a shift in higher taxes is because we've cut, like I was mentioning before, the federal taxes. We cut the taxes for the wealthy. That causes a cut to aid to states and localities, and then they make up for that tax by things like higher property taxes and higher sales taxes. So overall, we've had a shift of the tax burden going from the wealthy to the poor, and then we also cut the benefits to the poor. And then the people swing so far right. I don't even know what far. I know what far right is. I don't know what so far left is during I don't even like. So I'm gonna. Okay. Oh wow, I am so far behind. Oh my goodness, I got a lot of comments. Sorry guys, I didn't realize I was this. I thought I was clicking along pretty good here. Taxation is stuff. No, it's not. You can't blame rich people. You have to blame everyone under oath, not removing foreign agents from public offices. That's bullshit. It's so fiscally irresponsible to keep increasing our debt. Like, it's more dangerous to us for Hegseth asking for hundreds of billions to continue the war than Iran is to us. Tax the rich. I agree. The president has over 800 scams going on. How can he care? It's just like, it's all he is. He's just wandering around, like making billions of dollars off of this guy, off of that guy, gluing a gold-plated thing up over here and talking about these golden horses over there. He is just like a rambling, incoherent, sundowning old fat, racist man that just sits there and yells and screams and hollers and makes billions of dollars. The tax incentives offered by the New Deal taxes create actual pensions, company paid insurance, and company paid training and education. As those taxes faded, so did all the benefits. Yep. We need to restore some of that stuff. And this is one of the places where I think, uh, who was it? Mike, to get back to your point, I think we need to restore union power. I think that's one of the things that's happened is these right to work laws and stuff like that took hold, and now unions are gone, and where uh, oh, unions are gone and gutted and no longer effective as they used to be, and I think a lot of that has to do with, well, honestly, the '90s. The tax incentives offered by the New Deal taxes create actual pensions, okay. Blaming the government for everything is not really correct. All of the people in this country want to know what we want, and we made a part of the mess and the bad management. I think blaming the government, I'm not blaming the government. I am saying that what happened is we changed the government, and corporations specifically changed the government. The government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. We seem to have forgotten that. We have, and I think this is consistent with what you're saying. We have lost our role in the government. We have stopped believing in the government because we stopped believing in ourselves, and it's we need to restore our place in the government, our role in the government, by actually electing people that do things that we want them to do, instead of being played like little fiddles, using through cultural wars and stuff like that. Like, if you care more about whether or not a trans person is peeing next to you than whether or not a child gets cancer, then you have a seriously broken soul. Class warfare is just more of their divisive tactics to keep all of us fighting among ourselves instead of uniting together to fight Freemasonry. I've recommended this book before. There's a book called White Trash. You can get it on Amazon. It's a really good book. It's a history of class warfare and how our nation's history has always been the rich people using class warfare and racial warfare to keep everybody else from fighting with each other, and telling the middle class and the poor white people that if they don't watch out, then the colored people are going to come for their jobs and make them even worse. And so this is our entire nation's history. And he goes through every single period of American history, and it's actually kind of a sobering book. I highly recommend reading it. Increase taxes, but they got to reduce borrowing and spending. But if you increase taxes, you can reduce borrowing and spending. Right? If you make more money, then you can start paying off your credit cards. How has it been going? Sorry, I've been busy being a day the past week and have a quick break. Hey, I never did figure out how to dies. I'm going to call you track. Diss track. Oh, diss track. It's been a commentary day. There's a lot of comments. Todd Blanche is not qualified. Todd Blanche is just, if you're willing to send somebody to jail for something that the President of the United States just made up, because you're the President of the United States lawyer, you do not deserve to be Attorney General. You put money in poor people's pockets and they spend, stimulating the economy. Give it to rich, and they mostly hoard it and they don't spend it. Yep. Exactly. Oasis says fake news. I don't know what is fake. Ben says true stream. True restream. I am on restream. The Democrat and Republican Party are not what they were 20 years ago. No, that's true. Neither party is. I would like to see the Democratic Party shift more to the left, in all honesty. These two goons whose terms are done in January are just going to take Blanche's word for it. That's not going through with the $1 billion slush fund because he wrote something out. He may, and to me, this is something I keep meaning to say, because this is what pisses me off the most about the thing. We have gotten all caught up in whether or not that thing is still going to exist, and whether or not this note cancels it, and it doesn't. But that's not to me, that's not the most important issue. The most important issue is that Blanche signed it in the first place. Blanche was willing to let the President of the United States approve a lawsuit by the citizen who is President of the United States. He was willing to sit there and let Donald Trump sue the president for what the president did while he was in office. Donald Trump was in office when this whole thing with the IRS happened, right? So this thing happened while Trump was president, and then he sues himself as a private citizen, and then the president tells the private citizen, okay, you've got a point. Here's $1.6 billion. And then he wants to give that $1.6 billion to people that tried to help him overthrow the country because of all the suffering they went through by being prosecuted for the crime they committed in trying to help him overthrow the country. All right. Todd Blanche was willing to just rubber stamp that nonsense. And that alone, that decision alone, completely disqualifies him from being Attorney General. He cannot be accountable to hold the rule of law when he is ready to just wipe his butt with the rule of law. That is the most disgraceful thing any Attorney General in the history of the country has ever done, with the possible exception of the one guy with Bush approving of torture. And I don't even know which one is worse. Are we all united and strong together, or are we weak and letting others divide us apart and pick us off one by one? I don't know. I'm not letting anybody unite me or divide me. I'm just saying that people who make up crimes and try to send people to jail shouldn't be Attorney General. I don't think it's rigged based on what evidence. What is rigged? What do you think about the stuff going on with Spain and the all I know is there are some people that are acting like NATO's supposed to do something about it. I feel like it's getting represented as some sort of invasion. And I hate it when I see fighting age men and stuff like that. Like, oh, these fighting age men went there. Like, they went there to fight. Were they carrying guns? Look into the California, but that's not something I know enough about. I just briefly looked into it because I saw a tweet, so I can't comment more than that, Harry. Look into the California rail system. It is absolutely insane. Or any government contracting service, we pay companies millions just to submit bids that may not even get accepted. It's a little too vague for me. I'll look into the California rail system. Unity is strength. Look at that. Put all our differences aside and stand together against the entire corrupt system to make it better for everyone. That's interesting. Your emoji shows up. Sometimes the emojis just show up as like words. Trump was upset about how behind Paxton is in Texas for a few days ago. Let's go Talafrico. I love it. I love that they tried to name him Talafrico, and the Talarico fans, they started getting Talafrico t-shirts made. They're calling themselves Talafricos. And Talarico is going to win. Like I'm starting to feel more and more confident Talarico is going to win. First of all, Paxton is not popular. Paxton is so unpopular that he makes Ted Cruz look popular. Ted Cruz likes Ken Paxton because Ken Paxton is the only reason that Ted Cruz is not the least popular person in Texas. He is Ken Paxton's own wife. Own wife won't vote for him. His own defense attorney won't vote for him. Like, if his wife and his defense attorney are both endorsing Talarico, what does that tell you about whether or not they think that Ken Paxton should be a senator? Wife worked in government contract finance. The money is ludicrous. The thing is you always hear this kind of stuff about, oh, there's some money. But then whenever anybody goes and tries to find out where all this money is wasted at and stuff, it turns out they can't find any. It's easy to say, it's not easy to actually establish. And I'm not saying there's never any government waste. I'm just saying that maybe people overstate government waste because it's just easy to complain about that without really having it. You know, it's easy to just echo that without like really being substantive about it. But I think that it's not just about money, it's about people. Like the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people, not of the money, by the money, and for the money, right? The government should not be money first. Government should be people first. And like the people need healthcare, people need education, people need jobs, right? It's not about money. Money is not what represents our government. People are, right? That's what our Constitution says. It's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Not of the almighty dollar, by the mighty dollar, and for the almighty dollar. You can get private health care and private insurance in the UK if you want. People People very rarely do, but you can. And I think that's part of what El Sayed says. He's like, I just want Medicare for all. If you want private insurance, you can get it. But who's going to want it? And I think that's actually a reasonable thing. And I think that's why private insurance doesn't want a single payer system, because they can't compete financially. That means that it's going to be a lot cheaper, and the private corporations know it, and the private insurers know it, and they know it enough that they spend millions and millions of dollars a year lobbying to keep it from happening. So let me tell you a little trick. You want to know if something is in your best interest or not? If corporations are spending millions of dollars lobbying to keep something from happening, that thing that they're trying to prevent from happening is good for you. 100 times out of 100. Don't think for a second that corporations are doing this to protect you. They're doing it to protect themselves. I absolutely love Tallarico. He actually has a lot more experience in politics than I thought. He's worked on getting multiple incredible bills passed in Texas during his time there. Really hope he wins. And that is something, like he's not as young as he looks. He looks like he just graduated from college last year. He's actually like almost 40. He's like 30, 38, I think. And he's got a real track record in the Texas. He's got like some of the best education bills in the history of Texas that he helped get passed as a Democrat in Texas. And he's worked across. You don't do that without knowing how to work across the aisle. But he doesn't do it by compromising his principles. He does it by winning over Republicans with his principles. That's what makes him really something special. Tallarico is a unique political talent, and they tried to label him and smear him as being some sort of extremist. But this guy is about as extreme as a vanilla ice cream cone. He is not extreme. He's actually almost bland. He's not, like, you don't look at him and go, oh, that's a blue-haired, transgender, cisgender freako. He drives a pickup truck in Texas. I mean, like, that's Texan for you. He's a sixth-generation Texan. Been here around here longer than Ted Cruz and Paxson and Abbott combined. Like the idea that if there is a government healthcare service, you can suddenly get private healthcare whatsoever is so false. Capitalism works. But what we have now is not capitalism. It's capitalism totally. What we have right now is unregulated capitalism, which is one aspect of fascism. We never get to try free market capitalism. It's been fascism the whole time. You don't hear for extreme wealthy people to pay taxes is communism. You didn't hear for extreme wealthy people to pay taxes is communism. Yeah, I always think that's funny because it's like, If you're actually communist, then how can you have a wealth tax? Because if you're actually communist, you don't have wealthy and you don't have taxes. So if you're actually a communist, then you can't have a wealth tax. Those things are mutually exclusive. Laws should be passed banning insurance companies from investing in pharmaceutical companies and vice versa, and banning insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies from investing in hospitals. That's way more complicated than I've processed. I think that I can see where you're coming from, but I can also see where that might be an overreach. I think that there's a kind of this maybe there's too much bad guying the pharmaceutical industry and bad guying the medical industry. You know, some people go into pharmaceutical industry because they actually want to help invent disease drugs that help heal people that are sick. You know, so I think we got to be careful that we don't just label big pharma as though it's like a single entity. Same here in Germany. Under a certain income, you are insured publicly. You can buy more. Rarely anybody does. If you are above the income threshold, you can stay public or go private. I totally agree with raising taxes to eliminate the debt. I say legalize cocaine and marijuana. Tax the crap out of them. You'll chip away massively at the debt. Would also destroy the cartel. I don't know about cocaine, but definitely pot. It's getting so bad, even libertarians are demanding those rich bastards pay their GD taxes. Yeah. When you start having libertarians go, well, let me rethink this taxation and stuff thing. Germany already went through what USA is going through now. Yeah, back in the 40s, the 30s and 40s. That's why the USA needs Germany's help to get it right. Mm. The USA has some draconian trade unions like the proper authoritarian stuff. Those folks are confident they're constantly correct, that they can't communicate even slightly effectively in any meaningful way when in a different context, like they have such damaged speech systems. That makes me look like a poet just because I do call and response. The only time both parties agree is when voting themselves pay raises. Yeah, the last constitutional amendment was that that Congress can't um, receive a pay raise the same session they vote for it. So that if you want to vote them out for getting a pay raise, you can. Like that's really going to happen. But anyway. The problem is that institutional limits to government power aren't effective and people have hijacked its power for their personal gain. And and that doesn't happen without some level of complicity, right? Like we can still vote them out. We just don't. You know, whether for various reasons, we let ourselves be played. We let ourselves get entertained by the by the little. I'm thinking like the guy that plays the flute and the snake comes up and then the snake charmer thing. It's like us. We're the snake, and they just play their little music, and then we dance around to it the way they want. But we are under the government instead of the government being under us. We're not exercising our control, and we need to exercise our control not just by voting, but by learning about whom we are voting for, and by voting in the primaries. One of the things I've said is you can't complain about who's on the ticket and then just be lazy in the primary. So Al Sayed won. He didn't win by as much as people thought, but he won. He is a really good example of what happens when people wake up and pay attention. And and it's not like I had issues with what's her name. I didn't think that either one was a bad candidate. but he had like 1/15 of her funding. Like there was all of this out of state funding for her. A lot of it was from APAC, I think. But he still won. He overcame that funding deficit. So, and he did that by going out and knocking on doors and getting people motivated. Mamdani got people motivated by knocking on doors. So, there is a way that the people can take it back that has nothing to do with money. But it does have to do with diligence. It has to do with actually us, the people, engaging with other people. And that's what I like about Abdul. He did that. That's what I like about Mamdani. He did that. Forget about, I don't care if they're Muslims. I don't care if, to me, I don't care what religion anybody is. I just care that they want to do the best thing for the people. Getting rid of unions and our loss of community has really hurt us. It really, really has. I think that that Democrats abandoning unions are the real reason Trump won. I mean, the American electorate isn't exactly renowned for its intelligence. Yeah, George Carlin used to say that imagine how stupid the average person is, and then think half the people are even stupider than that. And now that the stupid half, they self-identify with the red hat that says MAGA on it. Humanity is a dumpster fire. The governments don't really have control over everyone. They just make some people think they do. American history is like 3 days long. Can't be a very big book. Yeah, that that is. I've been to. I lived in Europe twice. I lived in England for 3 years, and I lived in Italy for 2 years, and got around Europe quite a bit. Been to most of the countries in Europe, and one thing you realize I was a kid the first time, but you walk through the Roman Colosseum and you realize that was a long time ago. Like you go and you walk, like you walk around in Boston and around, like where the Tea Party is and around that area, and you see these houses. You see some houses that are like 300 years old. You're like, wow, that's old. Then you go to England and it's like just people live in a 300-year-old cottage, and it's like not even a famous thing, just like a house. That's exactly correct. Otherwise, we would completely rise up against them and take their money. They have to keep us distracted and fighting amongst each other. We can't even be looking to this government to fix all the problems for us. No, we can't be looking to the government to fix all the problems for us. We have to look to ourselves to make the government fix all the problems. We're not looking to the government to do it. You've got to stop identifying the government as something other than us. It's we the people, right? We are the government. We're just letting a bunch of knuckleheads take our jobs because we abnegated our responsibilities as voters. It's not that we need to let the government fix all these things for us. We need to reassert ourselves as the real leaders of the country, as the people. We are the government. We cannot think of ourselves as a separate entity. As soon as we start thinking of the government and the people as two separate things, the people that have persuaded us that they are winning. And then that's where things start going off the rails. And it's the haves versus the have-nots. Always has, will be. Much of the short history book is defeating the British times two, then saving them later. Ooh. I think you just got smacked, Harry. Really, I don't think of an occasion where you beat us properly. In the American Revolution, you got the French and Spanish to come bail you out. We let you win. Harry, when in 1976, I was living in England, and I went to Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, and they had a thing on the rebellion in the States, is what they called it, to celebrate the bicentennial. It was interesting seeing England's perspective. If you've never talked to a Canadian about the War of 1812, they'll tell you that the War of 1812 was when we tried to invade Canada and they won. In the War of 1812, Washington D.C. got burnt. Your economy collapsed. New England threatened to leave the Union. Uh, Also, it wouldn't even be called the American Revolution because that's not what it was. It was the American War of Independence, or the rebellion. And it was called the. When I was there, it was called the rebellion in the colonies. I think the country got overthrown in 1871. Agreed. And the most important issue is that it's massive conflict of interest. Really, he's the guy's personal lawyer, and why? Yeah, he's. This is a Planche. The most important thing issue is that he's a massive conflict of interest. Really, like why did he not recuse himself from that whole deal? Like that, he should have recused. Like any moral lawyer with the slightest bit of integrity would have just said, you know what? I'm your personal attorney. I cannot be, I was your personal attorney. When you got, you know, tried for fraud. So I really can't, for tax. I need to remove myself from this instead of approving it. Like that is just to me, how much more corrupt can you get as a lawyer than letting your client sue himself with the taxpayers on the hook? Half the world to get independence from the Brits. I mean, even if you wanted to say that Donald Trump was wrong and deserved to sue himself, he should have just waited until he wasn't president anymore and then sued the government. It's not like he needs the money. That he sued the government while he was president just means he's taking advantage of the fact that he's president to settle his own lawsuit with himself to bilk the taxpayers for $1.6 billion. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what's making me so mad that these guys are just going to vote for him because they are done with Congress in January. I am like the ones that are done with it and the ones that are coming back. I don't care. Yeah, all of them. They're just slimy. Like they allowed. They're saying I'm okay with an attorney general who will send a person to prison for something they didn't even do and something that wasn't even done. It wasn't. There's not even a crime committed. And he's ready to send this guy to jail just because he got smeared. Europeans colonized over 90 countries, yes. We all have to unite or common ground together against the ones oppressing us. We can't let anything divide us and make us all fight each other. And then we need to realize that, right? Like, MAGA, we're on the same side. We are. You might not realize it, but we're on the same side. Eventually, the American people are going to have to realize that our government is just grand theater production, and people sadly believe there are still two parties running this. There are two parties running this country. Don't get me wrong. The Democrats and the Republicans are very, very different from each other. Like, the Republicans are just fascists. Democrats are institutionalists who are still trying to figure out how to make the institution work, which has been broken by the Republicans. All right? They're very different. Neither is perfect, but the Democrats are a whole lot better than the Republicans. Like, Democrats don't want to take away a woman's right to, like, decide what to do with her own body. Democrats don't want to, send children to internment camps. Democrats aren't trying to start wars and bomb people in Iran. Like there's a big difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. I'm not saying that makes the Democrats perfect. I'm just saying it makes them different and a whole lot better. It's like if they're ordering, like you've got the guy that's, you got a plate of arsenic and you've got like fish that's 3 days old. and it's not smelling that great. You got to eat one or the other. What are you going to eat? The poisoned chicken or the slightly spoiled fish? And that stinks really bad. One's going to kill you. One might make you a little bit sick. I'd rather be sick than dead. California Rail was a money pit idea from Jerry Brown, I believe. Someone forgot we have an invention called airplanes. Yeah, I don't. I looked into that one time. I think there was some stuff in there. I don't remember all of what it was, but I think it's become just one of these things that I feel like it's kind of been embellished beyond what like to become this more that like the criticism of the California rail system should be restricted to the California rail system. It shouldn't be like applied to everything in government throughout history and mankind. Why are Republican lawmakers not tired of being lied to by Trump nominees? I don't, because they don't care. They just want an excuse to be able to vote for them. I'm never even going to get to what I wanted to get to. They can't find millions and billions, but yet kept track of my $500 in my bank account. The world's downfall was some idiot convincing others a shiny gold colored rock was valuable. And kind of not far from the truth there. I understand what you're saying, that the government was supposed to be for us all, but they define person and people as corporations, life. Well, the founders didn't. The Supreme Court did, and that's because we let them. We let so. What happened is in the year 2000, Al Gore was running against George W. Bush, and then George W. Bush, his brother was governor of Florida, and his brother managed to manipulate the election just enough through like different ballots for different counties so that the butterfly ballots that were so famous with all their hanging chads and stuff like that, nobody talks about this. There was like a thicker bond paper in those ballots. So when you punched them through, there was a higher chance that they were going to have that hanging chad there than in the conservative counties. And they were printed off different so that you had like the names aligned differently. And then, so all the confusion was deliberately planted to cause the confusion. And then there was just enough confusion that it caused Bush to win the election. And then Bush ended up naming these Supreme Court justices who went ahead and said that citizens or that corporations are people when it comes to some things, when it comes to being able to, when it comes to speech, but they're not citizens when it comes to committing crimes. So you can yell as loud as you want. You can be a person when it comes to financing campaigns, but you can't be a person when it comes to killing millions of people with opioids. Right? Why aren't the Stacklers in jail? They should be in jail. So, anyway, I'm off on a tangent here. But that's where they get the Citizens United is where we get the corporations or people. They're not. But again, we let all of that happen. We let that. If we had, as American citizens, taken our voting responsibilities seriously and not acted like Al Gore and George W. Bush were the same person and voted for Ralph Nader, even though he had no chance to win, George Bush wouldn't have won. We wouldn't have had that Supreme Court. There's a very good chance that the Twin Towers are still standing. We don't have the Homeland Security Act. We don't have ICE. We don't have Chief Justice Roberts. We have Roe versus Wade is still around. Like, how much better? Like, because we just abandon our responsibility when it comes to voting intelligently. Oh, they're the same. The both sides, they're the same people, are responsible for George W. Bush. The both sides are the same people are responsible for the first term of Trump, and the both sides are the same people are responsible for Trump too. Like, stop with the both sides are the same. They aren't the same. And I'm not saying Democrats are perfect, but they sure as hell aren't Republicans. All of this about people needing education and healthcare and housing. It's all woke and radical leftist Islamic nonsense on behalf of all MAGA morons. Ooh, I got 200 joules from Nikki. Thank you, Joel. Nikki. It's to protect corporations as not living beings inhabited like us. Yeah. And it's because those corporations are run by the people who are paying the Congress, who are buying the Supreme Court to tell the Congress that they're people, and then that are, you know, giving the Donald Trump billions of dollars to like pardon them for their crimes. I absolutely love that Tallarico is pointing out the hypocrisy of anyone who fell for the nonsense that if you're a Christian, you should vote for a Republican. And his faith is sincere. Like they try to label him, but if you watch him talk about his faith, there's no question he's sincere. He's not the one who cheated on his wife. Of course, he's not married yet, but he still didn't cheat on anybody. Maritime admiralty law has legal jurisdiction over ship cargo and corporations engaged in commerce on the high seas. I don't know what that has to do with what we're talking about. Either way, if Tallarico loses in Texas, we need to move him to like New York or California to ensure he gets a seat. I really hope he runs for president one day. I know, I mean, I don't mean this like I'm not saying he reminds me of Obama in you know, like that he's the next Obama. I'm not saying he's on Obama's level, but he reminds me of Obama in certain ways. He has this measured characteristic where he responds in like this measured, balanced way that respects even the challenges to him. Like if you ask him a tough question, he's not like Trump where he's going to be like, you know, insult you. He gives an honest, thought out answer to the question, even if it's meant in bad faith. And Obama was able to do that to where he actually would spin it. He would be able to turn that assault into a soundbite that was like, wow, I really like this guy. Tallarico has that ability to where he can treat everybody like a human being, even if that human being is treating him like an enemy. And one of my favorite things he says is he talks about like being a Christian. And he says that, you know, the Bible talks about you should love your enemies. And he, you know, that even what Jesus meant when he said that, he's like, look, if you're doing things the right way and you're doing things right, you're going to have enemies. Like if you think about it, that means when Jesus said you should love your enemies, that means you're going to have enemies, even if you're doing everything the right way, like Jesus was, right? And you should still love your enemies. And he said, imagine if everybody who is a Christian, or who claims to be a Christian, loved their enemies the way the Bible says. How different would our country be? And I think that is really that is what he presents. It's not just what he says, it's what he presents. He presents somebody that is trying to love his enemies. And I respect that about him. And I think when you see that, when you can't just gloss over that. Not if you're a sincere person. And I think that's what's like when they talk about he's like, oh, he's 6 genders or whatever. Like you just watch him and you're like, no, that's not who he is. Like even people that are Republicans, like they're like, no, I thought this guy was a freak. He's not a freak. If anything, he's almost borderline boring. Republicans just did the survey, figured out most of the country is Christian, and then came up with some nonsense that convinced Christian Republicans was what they did is they used two primary things back in the 90s. Like if you go back into the 80s and you look at 2 issues, homosexuality and abortion. And they were like 50-50 split. Republican and Democrat, both issues, right? It's like what they did is they took those two issues and they somehow managed. You can read everything the Bible says about abortion and homosexuality, and trust me, I've read it multiple times. You can read everything the Bible says about both of those topics in 5 minutes out loud, slowly. Like it barely even talks about those things. And they have somehow managed to convince Christians that that's all the Bible talks about and that's all that matters. The only time it talks about abortion in any way is when God is performing them. If you think that your wife is unfaithful to you, you take her to a priest, and then the priest makes her drink these bitter waters. And then if she is unfaithful, if the husband is not her dad, then God causes her to bleed, right? God causes this abortion. He opens up her womb and causes her to bleed. Right? So God performs the only abortions in the Bible. And then there's just a few verses about being gay. But, there's also verses about not worshiping idols. And you have people walking around with crosses around their neck, right, Christian? That's an idol. So how are you any different from a gay person? You're like, anytime you read about the gays in the Bible, which is only a few times, it has idolatry right there, right next to men lying with other men and whatever. Go ahead, look it up if you don't believe me. So your little cross you wear around your neck is just as sinful as a man sleeping with another man, according to the Bible. I'm not doing anti-gay stuff here. I'm just pointing out, if you are going to be consistent, be consistent. Instead of just cherry picking a couple of verses, acting like that's what makes you a Christian, and then berating anybody that doesn't, think that people are going to burn in hell for all eternity because they love another man. It's about priests of Baal forcing us into all their satanic religion unlawfully the entire time. As a Christian, it has always been offensive to me that any one Christian would vote for Trump, an antichrist. I do not see how anybody who is a Christian could vote for Donald Trump. Like like if you go look at Galatians 5, where it talks about the fruits of the flesh and the fruits of the spirit, and tell me what fruit Trump manifests. Tricking us all, poisoning us all, entrapment of all is illegally. They make everyone sick to profit, Vatican subservient organizations, and they make up wars to profit weapons. Who is they? Who are you talking about? These people with opinions on the healthcare system have no idea how screwed up our healthcare system is. I've been an RN for 45 years. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to guess that's not a current picture of you then, because that picture does not look like somebody that's 45 years old. Yeah, our healthcare system is very screwed up. There's a reason that we pay twice as much for healthcare. And they're like, oh, you're going to have long waiting lists. Like we don't have long waiting lists. Like, oh, we're going to have long waiting lists. Oh, scare me. You threaten me with something that's already happening. Death care and pharmacy. Don't like I'll have to save it for another show. I need to get permission from my wife to talk about this first. We now have insurance companies telling patients they are not covered for procedures their doctors have ordered and are life-saving. Yeah, and they're like, oh, death panels. The death panels, remember, like in back when ACA was getting passed and they were talking about the death panels? The death panels are the insurance companies. Over 89 million U.S. citizens did not bother to vote in the 2025 election. We need more emphasis on the importance of voting by adding civics classes back into high school and making Election Day a holiday. I think we need to do both of those things. I didn't even know that civics classes weren't in high schools now. But yeah, we definitely need to do that. All drugs should be legal, but under doctor's prescription only. The idea of giving morality to chemicals is absurd. I don't know about, like, to me marijuana and alcohol are actually, I think marijuana, like alcohol is worse than marijuana to me. Like the only like people can get drunk and get violent. People get stoned. The only violence they do is on pizza. Stock market investors hire people to sabotage businesses to make their stock investment win. It is absolutely crazy that we call one chemical a medicine and another chemical an illegal drug. Many legal drugs are abused. Many illegal drugs could be used to help people. Yeah, I love how Syed used to say, yeah, she was getting tons of money from APAC. She was. I mean, she was. She was getting a lot of money from APAC. Tell me you're a pothead without telling me you're a pothead. I'm actually not a pothead. I I experimented with Delta 8 gummies for a while, but they made me sick. Um, but yeah, I did have some drinking problems, but I quit a couple of years ago. Tell me you don't like Jews without telling me you don't like Jews. Enough with the APAC crap. I think that we need to, like, I'm always delicate around the whole thing with APAC and Israel and Jews and stuff like that. I think that there is, and I think that there is an incredibly nuanced topic around all of this, right? What, does Israel have a right to exist as a nation? Does Israel have a right to exist as a Jewish nation? Is the current Israeli government actually, represent the Jewish faith? Is being a Zionist the same thing as, like can you if you're not for this current rendition of the Israeli government, does that make you anti-Semitic? Are Zionism and anti-Zionism the same thing as anti-Semitism? I just feel like there's this whole nuanced topic, and everybody wants to pigeonhole you into either you're for genocide and you're anti-Israel, or you're an anti-Semite who doesn't think that Israel has a right to exist. And never, there's no nuanced position in the middle, even though it's like one of those things where I think most people have a nuanced position that's not one of those two extremes. Like, I think that what is happening, what I don't like with Gaza and Lebanon, you've got nearly 3 million Palestinians who did nothing wrong, that have been, like, chased out of their homes and have their lives destroyed. I think it's fair to say that they have been wronged. That does not mean that I approve of what happened on October 7th. Like, we're capable of having more than two positions at the same time. Nor does October 7th vindicate everything that happened to the people that live in Gaza prior to October 7th. A whole lot of wrong got done to the Palestinians before October 7th. October 7th was not a start date. It was a date on a timeline. And so I feel like that's a whole nuanced topic that goes way beyond whether or not, you're anti, what about, but APAC, to be clear, APAC is funding Israel destroying lives in Palestine. Or they're not funding it, but they're funding Congress to fund it. So I can, people that are tired of APAC, I can see that. I also know that there's another aspect where people will say APAC as like there's part of this whole global conspiracy about, the anti-Semitic, all Jews run the world kind of thing, and then people talk about APAC that way. So I feel like APAC, there's like legitimate reasons to bring up APAC, and there are also illegitimate reasons to bring up APAC. And that's why I always get careful to talk about that. So anyway, I don't know what you think about all that, Walter, but that's where my feeling is on it, right? Like that. I do not want my tax dollars going to killing more Palestinian kids. AIPAC does. So I have problems with that aspect of AIPAC. That does not mean that I think that Jews are running the world and that all these George Soros memes where, all the protests are being funded by George Soros or, like I've got short videos on this and I've got long videos on this if you want to go back and look. I'm not just saying this off the cuff right now to justify myself. But if you go back and you look through history, after the Dispersia, in 72 AD, Titus kind of chased Jews out of Israel, and a lot of them went to Europe and they settled in Europe. And in Europe, once Catholicism started to make its headway there, because in the Middle Ages, borrowing money, loaning people money was like you couldn't do it if you were a Christian. So the only people that were allowed to loan money to anybody was the Jews, and that was pretty much all the Jews were allowed to do. And so then they would loan money, and then they would build wealth because that's what they had to do to live. Then, because everybody owed them money, they became like the pariah. Right? They were the responsible for everything. So anytime something went bad, the king or queen would blame the Jews, seize their debt, and chase them out of the country. And this happened for like 2,000 years. They got chased out of Spain, Germany, England, France, one country after another. They'd pack up and they'd go to the next country, and Russia. And so then they finally got tired of being chased around, and so they decided we want a homeland. This was in the 1850s. They were getting persecuted in Russia. So we need a homeland. We need a place where we can just settle and nobody kills us. And they looked at different places. They looked in Central Africa. They looked in Argentina. And then at the same time, the Ottoman Empire started to settle down, or they were starting to wane. They didn't have money. And so they said, okay, we need everybody to register your land. And so then a bunch of Palestinian farmers didn't trust the Ottoman Empire, and so they ignored that. And then a bunch of, oligarchs said, oh, that's my land. And so then they registered land that they weren't working. The farmers that had been there for generations were the ones that were actually working that land, but they didn't register it because they either didn't know they had to, they didn't trust the Ottomans, they didn't know how, they didn't even, like, different reasons. So then the oligarchs started selling this land to the Jews. And then the Jews bought the land. Like, they didn't know they did anything wrong. They just bought land, and then they started moving there. And in 1851, about 3% of the population of Palestine was Jewish. By the start of World War II, before World War II was even started, it was up to about 30% of the population was Jewish, because they just kept moving there, and then kept, they were buying land legally. But not, the people that had been working that land weren't being sold it. Or they weren't selling it. They were just having people show up to their house one day saying, I own this place now. And so they're getting pushed off of their land that they had been working for generations. And then World War II happened. And after World War II and all the evil things that Hitler did, Europe said, oh, let's give Israel their own land. And they just didn't care that Palestine and Palestinians had been living there. They're like, we're going to give you this place. And so then it's not like the Palestinians said, oh yeah, we'll give it up, we're happy. And then so, the Jews went there, and then you had the Nakba, it was called, where they went in there and they basically just drove everybody that had been living in that land out of it. And it's the closest thing I can say. It's not a perfect comparison, but the closest thing I can compare it to is the Trail of Tears, as far as something that most Americans are familiar with. And so they drove them out, and they've just been driving them out for the last 80 years. They've been driving Palestinians off of their land, and they drove them all the way to this narrow strip of land called the Gaza Strip, where they've been forced to live, where they had, they weren't even allowed to import nutmeg for a while. And it was called an open air prison for a reason. And yeah, some of them could go through checkpoints and all this kind of stuff. And yes, there were terrorists. And yes, the PLO existed. And but it's not like they just, were, violent for no reason. And I'm not saying that justifies it. I'm just saying that there is a history here from both sides where both sides have been wronged and both sides have done wrong. And most people, they just look at this whole thing and they just say APAC or anti-Semite. And it's like it's much more complicated than that. And that's why I never talk about it on this show. And I always just get annoyed with people that jump on and say APAC. Anyway, sorry if I went off the rails there and went through a whole history lesson that nobody wanted. But that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I think that we need a two-state solution if we can have one. But I like, yeah, it needs to be a sincere effort where like Palestinians have actual equal rights with Israelites, and I think that we need to stop the anti-Semitism in the United States. I had a friend, professor in history. He was on the show, and we was talking about this. And he's a Jewish guy, and he's came on right after those two Jewish people were assassinated in D.C. And he's like, "Look, we just want to go somewhere and not be killed." And I can understand that. Like, we don't need to make either side of this evil. We need to find a way to see both sides as human beings and foster a way where they can live together. That's my, like, Palestinians are people, Jewish people are people. Why can't we have that as our starting point? The United States is not the whole history of America. Go look at the Aztec ruins. Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a lot of people don't realize how evolved some of the Native American civilizations were. Even like, I mean, you talk about the South America, but even in North America, there were some pretty advanced civilizations. Citizen grand jury powers and citizen grand jury trials and indictments. They say the USA was land of the Bible. I don't know who says that. The War of 1812 is factually the war you tried to invade Canada. They beat USA, yeah. You just ask any Canadian about that, and they will gleefully tell you, remember when we beat you in a war? Nah, George Washington was so smart for you, he knew we all had to do was keep escaping captive. All right, so I think I'm way behind on the comments after that. How far behind am I? Some Democrats did for I don't think any I think that's neither here nor there. The majority of Democrats didn't. I'm not going to get into Parsi stuff. They deceive us to lie and say we are all these capital letters, birth certificate names. It's not true. We are alive. We cannot be a beneficiary name of the National Trust. I wouldn't call them Democrats then. I would call them MAGA light. I mean, we're talking like 95% of Democrats versus 100% of Republicans. And if a Democrat's voting for ICE, do what you're supposed to do and get rid of them. Fetterman should never see Congress, Fetterman should not even be on the ballot. He needs to get his ass primaried. The same way that Sinema and Manchin got, replaced. We are the living. They are the army of the dead. They trick us all illegally into thinking and believing we are these beneficiary names. I don't know what that means. Okay, I'm going to scroll down. Tellerico reminds me so much of Obama, the way he's able to communicate to the people. But all right, buddy, heading to my kid's open house. Have a good night. F Trump. Not only love enemies, but welcome thy stranger. Yes. John McCain is a decent guy. I don't. He died because Barack Obama made a funny joke at his funeral. That's the biggest insult he ever gave him. I don't know what all that's about. Oh, Obama was making fun of the fact that he got asked to speak at John's funeral because it means that he would have to say nice things about him. Jesus overturned the moneylender's table, dined with the undesirable, and preached that the poor and sick should be taken care of. Thank you for the compliment. Oh, it's current. Wow. Like you look 35 in that picture. You're 65. Wow. The papacy killed so many Christians throughout the history, and every day around in us we don't understand. We are not going to make everyone into the $6 million man. There's always going to be limits. I don't know what. I don't think anybody's. I think just basic health care would be a nice start. You don't need to make everybody into the $6 million man. Think about it. The same thing they did to the natives is going on now. They come and poison the land and make everyone sick and run to them, and everyone winds up being sick, brainwashed slaves. Marijuana is natural. It's a plant. Granted, I don't care for it right now. I'm an alcoholic, but it is what it is. Never had a drinking problem, but some people had a problem with my drinking. That's actually a good line. It was an electric chair. People would have been wearing those around their neck today. You can support a people and not support their government. I agree. Brett's glad he's not religious. The black cube of Saturn? Why does everyone hate George Soros? I don't understand. He's just he's just become the Republican boogeyman. Like that, just everything becomes about George Soros with them. I don't understand it either. Thank you, Restream. They just brought land. Hitler was funded by the Knights of Malta and the Vatican. I don't know about that. They were really looking for Semites. That's what they stripped them down, shaved their heads, and had doctors examine them. I think that was more to keep lice out. It was not just Jews that were kept. There were gay people, communists. Remember the poem. It's first they came for the communists, then they came for the socialists. Right? There was a number of people that were kept there. It wasn't just Jews. Jews were like kind of. I mean, obviously, there was something about that, but it wasn't just Jews. They killed basically anybody. Or like they but I always say this, like when you hear Donald Trump sitting there talking about the communists and the Republicans complaining about the communists, anybody that's left of them is a communist, and they want to destroy and they want to control and blah 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 and all this nonsense they're saying. Remember, the poem started first they came for the communists. Every time you hear them say they're going after the communists, I want you to think first they came for the communists. Because when we say they're fascists, everybody gets all defensive. But when they say we're communists and they're coming after communists, they're proving that we're right. And we've already seen that story in history. I have to be honest, people believe they had only one life and not another. In another, maybe they'd be more respectful of the current world. I'm not a scholar, but there's religions that think they can confess every weekend. All the praying they did last week, it is supposed to be used once, right? Not on a weekly basis. Like anyone can become a Jew, it's a religion. Semites are different race, born that way. Semites are the original inhabitants and natives of the world. This is a bit of a semantic thing. There are the sons of Abraham that are a Jewish race. The Semite can be used to mean anybody from that region, but Semites also mean children that people that descended from Abraham. That is a sort of race and a religion at the same time. So you can be a Jew by inheritance and not actual Jewish faith, and you can have Jewish faith without being a Jewish by race. So, and Semite is like the people there. There's been this kind of conflation of people in Palestine or Semites and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's just playing with words. That's a semantic fallacy where you're using the same word that means two different things to try to mean both things at once. So they can own the entire world because the indigenous tribes have original land claim that stands in the way of the Vatican's plan of. Yeah, that's a little bit too crazy talk for me. I don't think that the Jews are trying to run the whole world. I think that's where you start getting into anti-Semitic stuff. That's where you're going too far. Um, Obama loved ICE and gave Tom. Oh no, Dom. Oh, you know what? Just okay. Tom Homan wasn't killing American citizens on the city streets. He wasn't erecting uh, concentration camps that children were being locked away in for months on end. And Tom Homan wasn't doing what the ICE is doing right now. Like the whole like Donald, you're acting like ICE was doing the exact same thing then that they're doing now. It's not about ICE or not ICE. It's about the current behavior of the Republican administration. It's not like we're against deporting people who are here illegally. We're against murdering people who are here illegally. Wowza Kelly, way behind. And that, okay, so I'm getting caught up a little bit because I'm just skipping over some stuff. That's 7 minutes ago. I think I'm way past the electoral college. I'm so sick of this idea that the electoral college means that everybody has to compete in every state because it means the opposite. It means like only like 5 states actually matter. Nobody competes for Texas. Nobody competes for California. Now we're getting to the point where nobody competes for Florida. The largest states, nobody competes for New York. Like that's more than half the country that nobody competes for because we know that 2 of them are going blue and 2 of them are going red. You know, if you had to make it so that you had to compete for every vote, regardless of where they lived, then you would have that would assure that you campaigned in all 50 states. Pennsylvania Democrats are most certainly anti-Fetterman right now. Fetterman is like the most despised person on Twitter right now after Trump. He's giving Ted Cruz a run for his money. Is James Talarico trans? No, he is not. And there's nothing wrong with being trans. But no, James Talarico is not trans. We are not getting rid of the Electoral College. Well, that would require a constitutional amendment. Obama's immigration policies and Trump's differ in application and process. They're not even like, yeah, it's just, are you a trans bot? The guy gives his money to poor people and charitable causes, and apparently he is evil and corrupt. How does that work? Well, you know, because he gives his money to poor people, you know, instead of, you know, making them work for it or something. I don't know. If you're not trans, speak up. Y'all, the commies are taking over. They use the Jews as an excuse, a scapegoat. That's been the case. I mean, throughout 2,000 years of history. The irony is that the Jews in the Ottoman Empire were treated better than the Jews in Europe for like, you know, 1,000 years. Can't remember what the word was for it. They had a word for it. It was like people of the faith. I think was the translation. So there were the Christians, Jews, and Muslims. While they were Muslim, they considered Christians, Jews, and Muslims were all people of the faith. They all, you know, came from the same, you know, origin. And so if you had a Christian community, they kind of let you be self-autonomous as long as you paid your taxes. If you were a Jewish community, you can be self-autonomous as long as you paid your taxes. If you were a Muslim community, you can be self-autonomous as long as you paid your taxes. There was some oversight. There was, you know, and it wasn't always perfect. But the Ottoman Empire was actually a much more advanced philosophically than the Catholics. You thought you're cutting pays when stump people. Like just the whole idea that they can just walk around, ooh, trans people, and think that that's a winning argument. It's just an indication of how much they're in their bubble. You could be a Muslim Jew because there is a Jewish race and a Jewish religion. So if you're ethnically Jewish, but you follow the Muslim religion, you are a Muslim Jew. This is true. The hatred of the Vatican by Donald Trump is quite hilarious. And J.D. Vance wrote a book about how Catholicism changed his life. And then, but the Pope needs to like stay out of religion or something. You can't stump anyone in an echo chamber. Who is stumping who in what echo chamber? And then he goes in this wild tangent about how the Pope is wrong about theology and he should speak very carefully. Yeah, that's what I was like. What an idiot. Because the Pope said that like you shouldn't like be a warmonger. What do you think of the lines of disposition? I'm not sure what your perspective is. You know, like, but yeah, are you talking about like the Old Testament dispensation and the New Testament dispensation? I think biblically, it's pretty clear that you had the law and now you have Christ, right? The law came. You had the first man Adam, and then you have the last Adam in 1 Corinthians 15. You're the one in the echo chamber. You're so gosh darn heartbroken that you have come to the channels. You can't stand just a poop post. Fornicate off. Anti-Semitism is used by fascists to shut down criticism of ethnic cleansing. Yep. Well, that's just bollocks. The central doctrine of the Catholic Church is infallibility of the Pope. So how is he wrong according to Vance is baffling me. Yeah, well, he has to be speaking as the Pope, though. But like the idea that like Vance somehow knows more about theology than the Pope does. You know, what theology are you referencing here, JD? Would you like to have a debate with the Pope on the Bible? Because I don't think you're going to win. If you look up, I don't know what the Hasbara manual is. Oil companies announced a record profit this quarter. Should they use that to lower gas prices? Well, I know if Kamala said something about that, she would be called a communist. It's Freemasons making everyone point fingers at everyone while they run away with the loot. Jews were considered scholars in the Persian and Ottoman empires. There is the disclaimer. I don't think we've gotten the $5 or the $10 yet. MAGA can't get mad at me. It's capitalism and cruelty. The only good thing Trump has since caused is we have become very aware of all the things that need to be changed in our government. You know what I just realized? We're actually getting to where we can have like a nice conversation with people that are not trolls. Like we've got enough regulars that, and we can have like an actual real conversation with people that aren't trying to destabilize the conversation. So okay, with that, I'm way over. I've been trying to keep it at 2 hours, and I'm at 2 hours and 40 minutes. I more or less got caught up on the comments by skipping past some. Sorry if I missed yours, but I'm gonna head out now. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks for watching.